We'd like to go ahead and get started. So thanks for joining us in the upper echelon here of the McCormick Place on level 500. Sorry, Steve, this is your hat. My name's Thayer Long, and I'm with NPS, and I have been asked to, I guess, set the stage in terms of why we're here. And that's a great question. But the reason why we're here is because a few months ago, there was an issue that we saw within the industry, and Steve, which really was identified by Steve, as well as many brand owners out in the industry regarding performance and standardization around packaging. And they were looking for a home, if you will, a place to work, and they looked to NPS and they said, would you provide us some resources to get together and to collectively come up with something that we could present to our value chain partners? And we said, of course. And so we did. And we also asked Steve to help spearhead this project for us. There's nothing in it for NPS. It's really here to benefit the industry and to increase communication within the supply chain and the industry supply chain. So that's why we're here. And there's been a lot of work done with many of the brand owners, two of whom are with us here today. But there's been a lot of work within the group to come up with some conclusions to begin to share with other industry partners in order to create some efficiencies with our businesses and ultimately, I think, provide better and more positive outcomes for the industry. So that's why we're here. We're really pleased that you're able to join us. You know, today is really just the beginning, I think, of continued conversation and communication in terms of what we're doing here and then getting it out to the rest of the supply chain partners. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to someone that really knows what he's talking about, and that's Steve. So thank you guys very much.
Thanks, Thayer.
Thank you, Steve. Thank you.
And we're going to let you go because you have to go run a show. Okay, okay. Well, this has been something I've been working on with ISO and with many of the brand owners in the United States for several years. We've been trying to put together a list of requirements for the printers in the industry that really, again, we'll let them address it more, but many of the brands had their own rules that they asked printers in their supply chains to follow. So as we've met and agreed that these are the rules that we would like everyone to work by, they're all tied back into ISO standards. A group of brand owners asked me to go work on building this into an ISO standard. So we're going to talk about ISO 19303 Part 1, which is where it's a document for schema writers, and we have the NPES Brand Owners Council that have put together a schema of, and again, they're good basic operating practices that help everybody communicate. And in my opinion, this really gives us the opportunity for all of us to be more successful instead of having one workflow for one consumer products company, one for another consumer products company. That's kind of the overview of what we have. There's 11 brands that are participating in this right now. We're anticipating some more that are looking into it and going to join. I'm going to go through the schema today. I'll give you a brief overview of 19301 and show you how it's written. It has responsibilities in it for each supply chain partner, be it an ink company, be it a pre-media company, a plate maker, brand owners. It was real exciting to me when P&G looked at the schema and said, you need to add all these other responsibilities to brand owners because if we don't communicate those, we don't get our expectations met. So it's been a collaboration of a lot of groups putting this together. And I guess with that, I would say one thing, and we'll get to this in a little later, but the brand owners have asked that as we do this, how do we get our message out? And this was our first attempt at having these brands send out stuff to the supply chains. I don't know how well that went because I've had several pre-press companies reach out to me and say, we didn't see the invitation, can we come? And it's like, well, so where did the letters go to when procurement sent them out? So I don't know how that worked. But what we're doing today, we're going to turn into a video that they can use and pass back out to their supply chain partners. We may end up doing this in other cities if that's something that works out. So we have two local brand owners here today. And with that, I would like to introduce my friends Ann Archer from Barilla and Mike Underwater from Kraft, and I'll hand this over to you guys. Kim.
Hi, everybody. I'm Ann Archer. I'm responsible for the pre-press and printing of packaging at Barilla America, and also bringing new technologies and new process improvements to the company.
Hi, Mike Underwater. I'm the design to print lead, Kraft Heinz. Been with the company for 18 years. I oversee design agencies, pre-press, and oversee the print quality controls for the North American brands. And here to do the same thing, so try to communicate our brand owner council. I'll start it off with both Ann and myself. We're here to speak on the BOC. We want to bring this excitement to our supply chains. You know, we're looking to get to one goal and promote the brand owner council schema to the group here.
So this diagram here kind of represents how we would like to see the supply chains working together to achieve one goal. So the schema is about consolidating a variety of different ways of doing things from different packaging or consumer packaged goods companies into one standardized way of doing things. And we think that this is going to be a winning solution for everybody involved in the supply chain.
So we're going to show a video here real quick, but I believe both with Ann and myself being from Chicago, we were going to show you a clip that shows some inspiration from a winning organization. So if Steve, you could flip it to the next slide.
After all the hugs and celebrations, and the parades have come and gone, after you've had your day with the cup, and the many stories have been told, after you received your championship ring,
and the banner has been raised,
after the cheers have died down, and the stadium is empty, there's one thing that remains true. Winning. 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 Never gets old.
So both Mike and I are hoping that you found that entertaining and enjoying, and it kind of drives home the point that we're all trying to work towards one goal, and we hope that our current and future suppliers, partners will join us in trying to achieve that one goal, and that we will all be winning together.
So I want to give a little further emphasis on the clip. So as you saw those players from the Blackhawks, there's a lot of guys that will be in the Hockey Hall of Fame here. We've had a great leader and support person, the gentleman to the left here, Steve Smiley. He is part of the Hall of Fame from a graphic side of things. He's working on the same goal as the Brand Owners Council is, wanting to get to one goal and one standard. So we believe that's very important. So we want to make sure the industry organizations are following us, right? We're doing all the stuff together to achieve our one goal model.
So we want to thank you all for listening to us and helping us move towards one goal. And I think the BOC schema will really definitely move the needle in that regard. Another slide.
The one piece I would add into that is these guys have been asked by, let me go back one more, come on, by all of these companies to come and represent them in this, to come in and be their mouthpiece here as we continue doing this with the printers in the industry. It's all about everybody succeeding and having the right tools and the right aims and moving us in the right direction.
Correct.
So y'all are the voice from all of these companies as we do this.
Because what could possibly go wrong? This is something that I dug up. It's many years old, but I think it still kind of proves true today. This is something that I show my brand people, that once you can set everything up perfectly, but then once you get to press, there are myriad things that can go wrong. But by starting out with one goal and a standard way of doing things, you can minimize things going wrong down the road.
Yeah, I would agree. I think, you know, from the design all the way through the print execution, as long as we have our agencies, our pre-press or repro houses, you know, the printers with the ink suppliers, your Flexo, you know, gravure cylinder manufacturers. So having this one standard will help us drive there, right? You're going to get efficient, right? The supply chain will get efficiencies from this. There will be no doubt about it. So as you saw the big names, right? We all believe that this is going to help us get there.
Thank you.
Yep.
So with no further ado, what I'm going to do is walk through what we have put together as a schema. 19301 is the guidelines for schema writers for packaging for their requirements. The series 19300, 1, 2, and 3 are tools that a brand owner could be ISO 9000 certified to, and here's their schema. So from an ISO community, what we really hoped we could do with this series of standards is, instead of a printer writing down that they do things however they do it every day, be it right or wrong, and building their ISO 9000 certification around that, they're building it around the correct standards that help us communicate things globally. So I think it really makes a huge opportunity for us to grow the industry and help us all become more successful. There's responsibilities and things that anybody in the supply chain could be certified to, as a brand owner, a designer, pre-media company, plate provider, printer, or converter. The first schema that we've got is going to be a little, again, it's very basic, and I think, you know, the happy thing to me is all the associations really support what we're doing in this. Consumer products companies, their responsibilities are to have accurate viewing conditions. They're to have accurate measurement tools. This is how we communicate. And it is something that I don't know that we've been back to the CPCs and told them that they had the wrong instruments in there. I can pick at everybody in the room because y'all are all my friends in here now. But I've been into plants where large consumer products companies were using a 20-year-old spectrophotometer, setting brand standards, and then sending lab values out for everybody in the industry to try and match. And it wasn't compliant with the new standards. It wasn't giving us the same values. So without having modern tools in place, we do see a lot of conflicts in there. So we're asking everybody, as we start off with the brand owner, you need the correct lighting, you need the correct instruments, you need to define what your metrics are going to be. We're recommending from this council that we all move to Delta E2000. You need to specify aims and tolerances for your suppliers. You need to define a CMYK data set, and this is where we start getting into printers and issues we have around the world. A lot of times brand owners put an ICC profile in the file, they view it, they see a proof from it, and then they send it out to their supply chain partners that throw that away, and they run the machine the way they always run the machine. The embedded ICC profile, or what the brands want you to have, we're putting all of these inside of a PDF, so we have a PDF X4, a common method and a common way to pass the data back and forth. Spot color data shall be delivered through CXF. And again, when we did this with P&G, they said we use Pantone Live, and I had to point back out, Pantone Live's an encrypted CXF, but it's CXF data. We're getting the information we need. We need to start using SCTV for our calibration of spot colors. Spot colors look different between Adobe products and what we actually print, because using the old metric with Murray Davies, we're not getting a common appearance between digital, offset, flexo, gravure. We're not getting a common appearance between our dark blues and our reds and our pastels. Murray Davies had some strange things it did with different colors. From a design guide, the brand owners have to hand out and say, these are my objectives. This is what I want you to do. Here's my requirements. And by them delivering that design guide, which may turn into something like a PRX, it's a new ISO standard 20616, with print requirement exchange from the brands out to the supply chain partners. And we have most of the brands have been engaged in this. Most of the people that write reporting software are working on bringing in PQX, print quality exchange, to send the message back up to the brand. But it's a common format. Instead of saying you must buy this system and you must buy this system, these are open standards so we can pass data back and forth. Structural requirements, die line indication, minimum requirements for print and reporting, whatever their COA or COC, certificate of analysis or certificate of compliance requirements are on their packaging. And then we're asking, so this could be a certifiable process that everybody has a SOP for all of these procedures that they keep in place. And then that could be used by an ISO auditor to come in and make them ISO 9000 compliant as a brand owner. A design house. This is where I really start stepping on some toes, but it's quite important. Years ago, we put together a standard 12647 Part 8 for validation prints. It was supported in the US because our hopes were that designers would actually make something that looked like the finished package was going to be, instead of showing the brands a pretty picture, and then we'd go back in and do whatever we had to manufacture it. So we want to use an ICC profile. We want to have it, whichever one y'all want. We want to have it verified. If it's a design print, it's not to the quality that you would do a contract proof. But if it's going to be a contract proof, it needs to be a contract proof to the ISO standards. And that takes me down to comps. Comps can be done as a contract proof, or they can be done as a design print, or they can just be done as a comp for a TV commercial. But they need to be defined and labeled the way they are as they're being used, because it's Diageo that sends out the comps, the proof, and the printer's supposed to match everything. And if they're not made in harmony with each other, we have a real conflict press side, and the printers don't make as much money, and someone at Diageo is not happy as that goes through. File formats, PDFX4 2010, ISO 15930 Part 7 is a file format for blind transfer. It allows us to embed the profile. It allows us to embed spectral data for spot colors. It allows us to embed the images, the fonts. One of our brand council companies has a designer build all their finished files, and they send them to printers all over the world, and they're having better results than they've ever had before. And they're encapsulating everything in this file for blind transfer. It's fabulous what they've been able to do, and their supply chain has become more efficient. They develop one workflow. Files should be pre-flighted using the Ghent Work Group 2015 packaging specifications. So we're asking, as these files are passed back and forth, it doesn't end up at the printer at the end of the day and they've got a low-res image. If everyone through the supply chain is doing the pre-flight on it, then they're accepting responsibility for what they hand off to the next person in the supply chain. We do allow some native files to come in because there's some reason, again, there's a lot of resistance in making everything into a PDFX4. But with a PDFX4, I can always hold two keys, my mouth right, and hit a button and open up Illustrator, so I can get back into any of these applications. All of our modern pre-press tools, from Esco, Kodak, we'll throw in Artworks, Hybrid, they all accept PDFX4. They still work them in their native language. A lot of people are resistant to change, and we're trying to simplify this and make it easier for everyone. Photography should be embedded, should be raw or a TIFF, but it should have an embedded profile as to what the expectations of the brands are. The brands can proof their stuff on their ISO certified proofing device. The printers can proof them on their ISO certified proofing device. We're going to make this faster speed to market and improve things for everybody utilizing these standards. And again, each one of these responsibilities requires that there's an SOP written for it. From a pre-media repro house, again, the right viewing conditions, the correct instruments, the correct aperture, software compliant with raster vector format, They would use the same proofing as that we've used in the design, either a contract proof or a design print compliant to 12647 Part 8 or 7. File format that they deliver, I won't say shall, my standards hat wants me to keep going there, shall be a PDFX 4 2010 15930 Part 7. And that their files should be pre-flighted using the GIMP workgroup specs before they send it on to the printers. And I left this off the bottom slide. Again, every one of these, they shall have an SOP defining each one of these if they're going to be. Now, many people could write schemas for this, but we thought putting this schema together with some of the largest brands in the country was probably a better way to start it, and it might make a real core for the printers to start adopting. Again, my goal in this is to try and get everybody on the same page and help us all be more successful. Oh, I did have that in there. It was page 2 of pre-media. Workflow shall be prepared with one of the methods. So when you prepare something for a press, you've got to do something because press may not print the way your data set is. ISO 10128 defines 3 methods. One of them is using color management, one of them is using near neutral or G7 calibration, and the third one is used with TVI in 12647. Any of those methods are acceptable, but it needs to be done consistently and repeatable to match your expectations. Image carrier suppliers, this comes out of the Flexo standard, and it was really in here probably because that's where the plates are coming from other places. They shall have a 50% dot, a solid, and a minimum dot. It needs to be measured, and you should have a micro enlargement with each of them. Again, this opens up the door for any responsible plate manufacturer to deliver plates to your printers without them having to have things shipped around the country along with the second set of plates. The printer's responsibility, all the printer has to do is print consistently and match your expectations, and y'all would probably be really happy. They need the right viewing conditions. I go into printers every day that have gone out and bought 5000K bulbs at Home Depot or Walmart, and the booths are wrong. The proof and the print doesn't match. And these are giant printers around the world. It's one of the most frustrating things I've seen. The other thing are the old instruments. We can jump in with my X-Rite guys in the room. These are instruments y'all don't calibrate anymore. Haven't probably calibrated in 5 or 7 years. And they say, well, we spent a lot of money on them. We want to keep using them. They worked great for us back then. It's like, we have new technology. We have new methods of working today. You need to adopt this technology to communicate with the other suppliers. They need to accept PDFX4s. This is something that as we send files around the planet, PDFX4 is accepted almost everywhere, but I run into walls in the United States where people are like, well, no, we'd prefer to have an Illustrator, a collect file. We want to redo all the work again. If it's built into a PDFX4, you can provide a file to a printer. Their job would be to trap it and impose it and print it and match your expectations. So it really simplifies things and helps some of the pre-media companies even become more efficient because they have a standard workflow without doing something different with every brand or every opportunity. Print to the customer's aims, print consistently, and then report back. Many of the brands are requiring reporting. We have worked with all of the companies that accept reporting information. There's 12 of them that are at the show, I believe. They have all agreed to work using PQX, Print Quality Exchange, so they can upload data back into ColorCert, ColorCentury, PressSign, whichever system that you used for your work and your process control. They can use what tool works best for their process control and report back in a common language to you. Mm-hmm. And I think everybody's excited about that because then the printers can pick what works best for them. Mm-hmm. Barcode verification. If we're going to print something and you can't verify the barcode, and I go to many printers that happens back in the back room after the job's been printed. Nobody's out on press checking the barcode before we, and that's something that needs to be done before we get the color right. Same thing with fitting into a die line. Just some good basic operating procedures that every brand seems to have written out in a different format, and we want to make this a nice structured thing. Again, my goal in this is to help the printers become more efficient and make more money too, and to get you guys what you're looking for. Verification of light fastness. There's several COA and COC things that are specific to different brands. Colgate likes to soap up a tube of toothpaste, crush it, stretch it back out, and then rub it with something abrasive, because that's how we all brush our teeth, to make sure the ink doesn't come off. Again, every one of the brands can add to these schemas for what you guys need for your particular products. From the printer converter, they're still going on. So a lot of times we have a printer that'll actually print the job, then we go to a converter that's going to fulfill the job or do something else to the packaging. Everybody in the supply chain needs to have the correct lights and the correct instruments to verify that what they have going out to the next person in the supply chain is correct. They need to pre-flight the incoming files. They need to accept PDF X4s. And again, the printer converter are very similar to each other. When they receive a file, if it is not correct, what we're hoping is that they would get back to the supplier that provided the file, possibly the brand too if y'all want to engage, but let's fix this so it doesn't happen on the next job. I think these are just good business practices we're putting into place. Print to the customer's defined aims, report back to the customer. And there's a reporting strategy that I pointed to, I believe, in the back of the flexographic standard 12647 part 6. We have defined 4 or 5 different reporting schemas in there that define whether you reported delta E's to your aim characterization target. There's several ways of doing it. Again, however you wanted the report to show. Again, if you use color search, you'd look at it in that software or Color Sentry. Whatever you want to see, again, but it's a common method and message going back and forth. The responsibilities from the printer converter, boy, these just keep going. In the COA and COC, they do need a barcode verification. We have a standard ISO 15397 that defines substrate characteristics. This is where a lot of printers don't deal with the substrate manufacturers very well. It has requirements for paper manufacturers to report on every roll or every batch of paper that they made. Most people don't know that this is a tool that we can use in almost any type of substrate we're printing on and packaging. Verification of incoming inks from suppliers. Every ink company will provide you with a COA or COC if you request it. So it's just a matter of requesting stuff from people you're already doing things with. It's not costing anybody more, but it's getting you guys consistency on the shelf that you need. Verification of light fast requirements. Some products have to sit out in the sun for 5,000 hours. Some products don't. Some of them are going in these new LED lights that I see them in the freezer cases where the magenta disappears really quick. We need to make sure that the inks are verified for their final use. Rub test. We put stuff in packages, we ship them, they rub against each other, and the packaging gets damaged. It's very important we do the rub test. The solvent test, Diageo's, one of their bottles break and the inks run off if they don't do a alcohol solvent test on them. Coefficient of friction, when we started talking with Kimberly Clark, a lot of their plastic goods are stacked and put on containers, and if the COF is not correct, then the containers fall over the place and it damages their product. And then any specific testing required by a brand. And I'm going to have Debbie talk a little bit more about this at the end, but we do have the schema on the back table that's been endorsed by these 10 companies. And I'll touch on the pieces of the schema. The requirements inside here is that the partner workflows are being adhered to for that we just walked through, the responsibilities, the brand design, pre-media, printer, plates, converter. So we have a list of responsibilities. We want each party in the supply chain to remain responsible for what they're delivering to the next partner in the supply chain. Viewing cabinets shall be, I got to do my ISO shall be thing, sorry. Is it should or shall? Do you have to have the right lights?
Yeah.
They shall be.
They should.
ISO 3664-2009 compliant. Validation of instruments, they should be compliant to 13655-2009 or later. We've talked a lot about color judgment. Today, and I believe there's a new ASTM standard that was just finished by one of the guys at GTI, where they're talking more and more about the FM100 test, but they have rewritten that ASTM document on it that went back in and categorized superior discretion.
Oh, yeah.
So all the categories are back in because the automotive industry had to have it. So we don't want people making color decisions on our work that haven't been through a color blindness test, and at least understand what your limitations are. File format for photography needs to be RAW or TIFF, and the AIM profile shall be communicated through the supply chain. Design files shall be made in 15930 PDF X4s. They shall be pre-flighted to the Ghent Workgroup specs to make sure that we have all the components in there we need for packaging. Same thing with pre-media files. Both of those need to be made with an embedded profile that's the choice of the brand owner. That's their expectations. They've worked this through their marketing companies. Everybody's done it looking at it one way. We have to honor that profile and use it through the workflow. Proofing shall be done to 12647 Part 7. It's an ISO standard. We have just updated it maybe three months ago to include spot colors in there that the brand owners had required. So we've been moving all of the ISO standards in to adapt more into the packaging industry. For soft proofing, you shall be compliant with a 12646 monitor and a 18461 system. We all use soft proofing, and a lot of people just kind of say, well, it's just a monitor. We make our color judgments looking at those monitors, and we have tools that can make those monitors accurate, and we can pass data back and forth with them. If they're going to be used, which they're used every day, I used to run a team of retouchers, and until we figured out how to make the monitors calibrated, you had to sit down and read the numbers on each one because they were all different. If we use calibrated systems and acknowledge that, we can calibrate them to our printing. It makes so much sense and makes things so much more efficient. Plate making. Again, we pulled from the Flexo standard for plate making. Am I on the right page still? I am. I had to have a bigger note because that was too far away. The midtone and minimum dot shall be present on any Flexo plates. I would do the same thing on an offset plate. We need to have process control in every piece of our workflow so we don't have to dig down to the bottom of Ann's diagram to find out that we missed part 2 when we got to part 10. Substrates can be defined in ISO 15397. And again, it's a good method for defining what your aims are and working with a paper company. It ties together their C illuminant with our D50 illuminant. So there's a lot of stuff in here that helps us communicate back and forth across the supply chain in their languages. Workflows, again, shall be 10128. And I did add in here that it could be 12647 Part 6. The Flexo standard was the first ISO standard that we wrote that defined the characterization data that y'all embed as the aim for the printer. Not just the way they print. Don't send me a proof of the way the job's going to look when you do it. This is your expectation. These guys are sending jobs all over the planet, and when we have a printer come in and make their custom press profile, and you do that at another printer and another, we end up with these messes and we have products that don't look the same. Y'all define the expectations, we pass that out to the supply chain, and with a good workflow, they can optimize it and make it all fit. And we did workflow. ICC conversions, it's defined by ISO 15937. We've been using version 4 ICC profiles for 13 years now. Most systems take them. They don't quite go into PDFs yet, but they're still comparable for what they're taking into it. That needs to be used. We've done a poor job as an industry by taking customers' files, stripping the profile out of it, and then running it through our normal workflow. And this is the way the Chromelin looked, or the Kodak approval, whatever the system was, that becomes our aim, and then we retouch the file. When you hand me a file and it's got that profile in it, I can do the work. What were you saying? It was like, it takes 80% of the work away if I don't have to guess. Same thing with the designer. If the designers will use these profiles, then I can take things from multiple designers, hand them to the next person in the supply chain, and it's a lot less work and we're all more efficient. Viewing cabinets, again, they need to be ISO. Oh, I didn't go to the next page, I'm sorry. Near neutral calibration is defined in CGAT's TR015. TVI calibration is defined in the 12647 series. And again, it doesn't matter which one of these you use, just so you use one, you're consistent at it, and you can match our expectations. Brand colors should be calibrated, or should be passed using 17972 CXF data. And we should use for our dot gain compensation ISO 20654 SCTV. Gives us a common appearance with our Adobe products and makes the tints equidistant apart, so they're more of a, today, again, it's another story, another presentation, but if we had reflex blue and we had a light color and you looked at the tint ramps of both of them, they would look completely different. In many of the scenarios, we're starting to use some of your, well, we've always used your reds and yellows in our brand color and through the separation. And if you don't have a standard way of making that tint value, you've got a real problem when you get down to the end of the press. Colorimetry requirements, again, I'm pointing back at the Flexo standard because it defines matching the aims of the data set within the tolerances that you guys selected. We've talked a little bit about defining tolerance, but I kind of think that's for each company to do, depending on how much they want to pay for their work. If you want a delta E of 0.5, you're going to pay the printer an awful lot of money, and if you can live with a delta E of 2.5 or 3, you'll probably pay the printer slightly less than you would if you were trying to get something that was impossible. Barcode verification, reporting. And again, the reporting we want to use 20616 Part 2 for print quality requirements. And the COA and COCs are the same that I mentioned earlier, the rub resistance, the solvent test, the light fastness, coefficient of friction, and then any additional requirements by the brands would be added into it. So today we have, I'm going to try and do it. It was easier in order. PepsiCo, Coca-Cola, Kimberly-Clark, Barilla, Kraft Heinz. I'm going to need help with that. I should have had the slide open. We've got 10 very large consumer products companies that are asking their entire supply chains to build things and to work to this workflow. Where I have helped people put this in place, what I've seen is once they have done it for one supplier, then they start getting work from these other suppliers. So for the printers, it's really a big win to them that they're doing it to this ISO compliant level and that they're using the correct standards rather than something that came from Home Depot or Walmart or an old device. It's a clear message from the brand owners to the supply chain of what they need. And I have a couple of other messages that I would like to play. This is Kevin Shop had done a video. These guys would have all liked to have been here, but as I've been talking to NPES, getting a room full of brand owners together is really difficult. I'm glad y'all were here.
All right. Currently, I'm the Principal Packaging Graphics Director, Innovation R&D, located out of Norwalk, Connecticut. For me, the first organization or group of individuals from a brand owner, from the end user, if you will, or creator that is looking to align on standards and or best practices that are really going to propel us forward, create some harmonization within the industry, allowing us to make it a better world, if you will, for our industry, so that we don't have multiple instruments, multiple, I guess, call it maybe not multiple instruments, but multiple expectations being held to the print suppliers. Like to see them begin to see us holding hands and moving together more as a holistic group to drive the industry forward. I've seen throughout my career many different agendas within consumer products goods companies that you know, isolated might make a lot of sense for their organization, but then when you start looking at the printer who's working with 5-10 large, PGs that have their own, or marching to their own drum, creating their own standards or their own expectations, you step back and you look at the poor printer that's kind of going, so I've got to invest into all of these various different technologies and all of these various different standards. One, they can't even keep those straight, never mind, do them well. So really hoping that this organization helps us, like I said, join together and drive a unified message to the packaging industry.
Great, that's awesome. How about our schema? Do you have any thoughts about the schema that we're handing out today at the meeting?
Well, again, I think it's I don't want to make it sound like it's not been thought through, or there hasn't been a ton of work done behind it. But I guess from the perspective of today, it's first attempt, if you will, to get everybody to get on that same page and look at this, using one piece of information that I've been very passionate about, which is communicating brand standards, color brand standards for really propelling and maintaining brand equity using CXF. So I think yourself and probably others in the room understand that I, throughout my whole career, have been trying to find out what's the best way to do this. Written into our schema are things like that, but CXF is a great one. I want to be able to own the IP of my standards at Diageo. I want to be able to communicate those to whomever I want to, freely and openly, so that they can plug them into whatever application or whatever workflow that they're using. And in the end, I get what I was asking for. Not having to make multiple investments in multiple different directions, multiple different suppliers. It's crazy. If you start to look at it from a brand owner's perspective, we need something that is shared and something that is open, and the schema is all about that. It's all about sharing. It's all about standardization. It's all about the collective best thing for the industry. Yeah, unfortunately, I'll be out and about in my Airstream, so taking a well-deserved, I hope, vacation. I got a little 18-foot Caravelle Airstream 1969 that my wife and I have been renovating for the last 2.5 years. So just happened to be that print falls right in the middle of our holiday. So we should be somewhere out in the west, maybe near the Grand Tetons, hanging out in our little. So I would ask everybody in the room, really understand this is, I guess, no real agenda here outside of just making things better for us and for the industry. I feel like I battle every day, working with either new suppliers, trying to be sold something that they've invested into, and when I say they, a large vendor, we can't sustain that type of behavior as well. So if I've got 6 primary vendors and they all have 6 different ways that they want to do it, I've heard a lot of folks say to me, well, why don't you just do it the way the printer does it? Well, it kind of throws us out of balance, and we have no standards. So just understand that, my message to everybody is let's put our own personal agendas aside and get together and create one big one that we all agree to, that's going to make us better, and not undo, things that have been done in the past.
And I do have one more, we got 2 more messages. This is from Michael Johns from 3M.
Steve, as we've been involved together over the last couple of years, that 3M's print program is fairly new. And it was an honor that you asked us to be a part of it, as we look to solidify everything that we're working on does align with what other people are doing. So to be able to have a board of people that we can bounce our ideas off together, say this is what I'm working on, along with international strategies through the ISO standards, to know that our program is aligning with those standards, and we're not doing something just because 3M wants it to do it. So when I'm reaching out to my supply chain, I have that endorsement that, hey, we're not just doing something because we want to do it. We're doing it to protect our brands, and we're doing it in alignment and agreement with what other brand owners are doing along with the international standards. Well, I think from my immediate perspective, just what I iterated there was the immediate understanding that 3M's program is not just crazy. We actually are a little bit outside standards. With our tolerances are a little more loose than others. So I think adaptability with our supply chain and printers will happen a little easier than, say, with some other brands. So I'm hoping to see that consistency across print and have it all come together real well. I'll say what I've been saying for a long time to a lot of print suppliers. If you're not adapting to the way things have been moving, and you're still looking at color physically through visual processing, you're not adapting spectral technologies, G7, gray balance, and incorporating that into your process, now would be the time, because us brand owners have taken control of our businesses because of marketing, and not because we wanted to, and not because our printers have done a bad job. It's just we felt that we could control things a little better. So having you jump on board, if you don't have that as part of your process, would be something that would be greatly appreciated by not just me, but everyone.
And I have one more from Al Marquardt from Kimberly-Clark. And Al's not allowed to do any video conferencing through Kimberly-Clark's network, so we just have a little bit of a Skype call from from Alan.
Thank you all for attending. I'm Al Marquardt with Kimberly-Clark, and I'm the Global Packaging Production Manager. I deal with all the Kimberly-Clark brands around the globe and how we print the graphics on the packaging to spec and to color. The Brand Owners Council, to me, is very important from the standpoint it reflects or represents all of what the brands are saying as a group to the industry. The industry does indeed ask for our input, and this is an excellent vehicle or venue to get the point of view from the brand owners out to the printers and the suppliers in the print industry to bring this consistent message and have everyone march in the same direction. I do think that the Brand Owners Council is being heard not only by ISO but other organized groups in the industry, and they recognize us as actually having a common voice together rather than just a scattered voice from each of the companies individually. So the Brand Owners Council gives our common voice credence and helps the individual associations set good print direction as we go forward. The schema that's in place does indeed allow everybody to, shall I say, march in the same direction across the globe. In the past, we've not had that, where not only have suppliers had to modify their processes and techniques individually for each individual customer, but in different regions of the world, there were different behaviors and practices. So this schema actually specifies where we all should be and takes out a lot of confusion, as well as creates a lot of factual information for a printer to actually move toward and respond to. So it does indeed raise the bar on print quality worldwide. That's what really excites me about this program. Okay. Yeah, I really appreciate the organization of the Brand Owners Council and what it's doing to bring the common voice to the industry. We're making great strides. The tools are improving, the processes are improving, and now the communication among all of the brand owners and what we want is greatly improving. So it's all coming together, and it's an exciting time to be in this business and to see the results that are hitting on shelf. So thank you all for helping out. Thank you for participating.
Thank you, Al. That was wonderful. I'm going to turn. So the last piece that I had in here is the brand owners asked how we were going to get this message out. And this was our first stab, was to invite all of their supply chain partners to come join us here today. The other thing that we thought would be really important was to have the industry associations come in and support what we were doing. With that, I've got Mark Cisternino from the FTA, and I think you're the only one that's left in here out of my group of invitees. Could you give us a few words from that standpoint of where the FTA stands?
FTA has been very strong in the standards world for many years now. Steve Smiley's been our representative within that community. The first document, Flexographic Image Reproduction Specifications and Tolerances, is now into its 20th year. Version 6.0 is very strong on standards. Over the years, it really hasn't been an easy build. It's been kind of tough, so Steve can attest to that fact. It took a while to gain critical acceptance within our membership. Supply chain resistance hasn't made it easy. Having drivers like Kevin Chop and Al Marquardt as very committed individuals preaching the word of standards is very important to us. Bringing brand owners together as a group to form a consensus and communicating to everyone within the supply chain is critical. The FTA membership is made up of pretty much everyone within the supply chain: printers, vendors, brand owners, educators. So it's really representing the interests of the entire community. We're committed to working with the Brand Owners Council to ensure that all standards related to the packaging graphics workflow are communicated effectively to our member companies. So FTA backs this initiative 100%.
I would say that we're going to have a participation from GAA, SGIA, and I have not been able to get through the door of the Metal Decorators Association yet, but that's very important to both PepsiCo and Coca-Cola, so they want to make sure we're aligned, and Diageo. They want, the brands want everything to match on the shelves, and we have the tools to do it. We just need to try and get everybody on the same page to communicate your goals and have them meet your expectations. And thank you, guys.
Yes, thank you, Steve.
Thank you.